when you scroll on social media, you definitely find people speaking about it. And if I'm going to give you my opinion on it, I think the conversation should lean more towards leaving that victim mentality instead of, okay, like forcing people to understand us and to try to um, feel, because sometimes I feel that the messages come across as you have to feel pity because you treated us bad in the past, or you have to, compensate for all the things that we've been through. And I think the a more productive message would be, hey, let's understand our experiences, but from now on, let's just leave that victim mentality and try to work with the tools that we have, and just try to start seeing people as people and not identify so much as a skin color.
Well, let me ask you this: what is considered black in Latin America? Because I've met some people in Latin America that would be identified as a mestiza from Mexico, but they would say
Mhm.
that they're black, and I was like, yeah, if you go to the United States saying you're black, they'll laugh at you. So, what is the difference between like what is black there?
I, it's what you look like. I don't think it depends on, oh, it's just your ancestors and your genetics. It's just, do you look black? And if you don't look black, you're not black. And it's so it doesn't make it right because it's very subjective. Because you can be the blackest person and be super light skinned, and we all know that. But that speaks on the state of the conversation here, like what is really black. So I would say it's just the way that you look like and the way that you ultimately identify with.
Okay, okay, I can understand that. So, how has your perspective of this ideology evolved over the years? You told me you've pretty much grown out of it when I met you in person. What were some pivotal
Mm.
moments of change for you? Like, what were some key moments where you started to wake up? Like I asked you before, where you start to wear your hair natural. What are some other moments you had like that?
I had my phase of being and I don't want to fall into politics right here, but I have my moments when, when Obama was running for president, and that that whole thing, it reaches Latin America because we're so influenced by America in general. So I was following that ideology of, oh my God, I'm a black person, and um, I've been through so much, my ancestors and slavery and all of that. So um, I would say around that time, 2008, I was learning more about it, but I was definitely leaning more towards the, I'm gonna play the victim card, that my people have been through so much, and the world owes me something. Um, and that was a moment where I would say, hmm, after Obama won, and so many things happened, and I was so proud of it because the first black person in the biggest nation in the world was um, a black man. So, but then after that, I started to realize that things are not black and white. There are a lot of gray areas in this subject of being a black person, and the in my very personal opinion, it's so important not to fall into a victim mentality because you're gonna get stuck.
Okay, okay. So, could you talk about any personal or public figures besides Obama that
Hmm.
influenced your thoughts on race and dating? I know Obama was a really that probably was probably the most impactful. Would you say?
Well, but not in dating. It's just
Well, I guess it could affect dating, right? Because if you see a
it
black man
could.
in a position of power, it could change your perception.
Yeah, it could. I guess it could. Um, but yes. What affected me on dating? I think like dating for me in general is very. It's been a very personal, very unique to me experience. First understanding that, yeah, maybe my experience is going to be affected by my race because there are certain mentalities still um, uh, present in Latin America with people having their opinions about Black people. Um, but once I understood that, okay, let's just focus on the people that are interested. And here, a lot of people that are interested are usually or white man or just foreigners. So because they're not like locals are not very interested.
Wow, locals are not very interested. That
No,
sounds bad.
I mean that's fine. I don't want no one that doesn't want me or that wants to
I could agree with that. Yeah, if they don't want me, I don't want them either.
yeah.
C Man sent $5 on Super Chat. He says, "Do you align with the divestiture movement and date white men, or do you identify as a black woman and date black men today?"
Do you like what is divestor movement?
Divestor is people that like invest is to put into something. Divest is to take away. So you're taking away from the black community by marrying out, breeding out. You know what I mean?
Mm, no, I don't think I'm taking away anything from anyone because ultimately I see myself as a human being. I don't identify with that community. I'm a human first, and I just happen to be black. And when it comes to dating, I'm just interested in humans, in persons, in character, in values. I'm not interested in, oh, let me see how much melanin does your cells have, you know? So I'm not taking really anything away from anyone.
Okay. Okay. So have you when was the last time you say you dated a black man?
A black man. Well, I haven't dated in like 4 years.
Yeah.
But yeah. No, it was actually when I was like, I'm 30 now, maybe when I was 25. Yeah,
A black man.
a black guy.
Okay. And
I'm sorry, I got cut off.
you said you've not dated in the past 4 years.
Yeah, yeah, since the pandemic.
Okay. Interesting. So, what support systems or resources have you found helpful in navigating and challenging societal norms, like a therapist, or have you used anything besides yourself to overcome that mindset?
A lot of personal growth. I don't, if I could, I would do therapy. I think it's helpful for everyone. But a lot of, there's a lot of resources online. One of my favorites, Jordan Peterson. I listen to a lot of podcasts, with just people, industry leaders on personal growth and just um, realizing that a lot of ideologies are put in us and beliefs are put in us by our environment. So just leaving that box that the society puts us in. So yeah, it's personal growth and being intentional with the things that you listen to and try to be smart about it as well.
Yes, exactly. So, C Man sent $5 for that was a very politically correct answer. I guess he's trying to say if you prefer white meat, say it with your chest.
I don't prefer white meat. I prefer good man. And if the man happens to be black, I welcome it.
Okay, so Ted sent $2 on Cash App. Thank you very much. And Mojo sent $25 for a great interview. Thank you very much. It is a very good interview. We have a very mature guest, and you people in the chat are very. I've never seen y'all act so childish like y'all are. Y'all are about to have a baby because I said Brazil was
Oh,
majority black. Anyway,
I want to
how do
read
you
it.
approach conversations about race and dating preferences with younger generations?
I think actually younger generations, like your generation, are very open. And I was reading an article about it the other day. Like Gen Z is like the most open generation there is right now when it comes to dating. They're willing to date Indians, black, white, mestizo, like whatever. So I think they are the ones that maybe have something to teach us, like the millennials or even further back, and to be a little bit more open and to focus on the things that really matter, which are, in my opinion, values and goals. Have similar goals, similar values, and having the same view of the world. Those are the things that truly matter. It's not, are we going to have babies that are black or the same color or whatever. So, yeah.
Okay, that's a great answer. Vulcanist, thank you for the $20 super chat. I appreciate you very much. Uh, got another question. So, can you provide insight into the historical or cultural origins of this mindset within Latin America? Like, what, like, black people are criminals in the States? That image comes from old films that came out in the 1900s, or
Oh,
huh?
I'm gonna connect my
I
laptop. I'm listening.
Okay, I forgot the name of the film. There was a film
Mhm.
that came out way back in like 1908, I think it was, and it was showing like black people being rapists, being criminals.
Mhm.
I don't know what the name of it is, but there was a movie that came out like that that depicted black people that look like that. So we gained those stereotypes. What would you say in Latin
Mhm.
America was that equivalent? Like what made the Birth of a Nation was the name of the movie. Birth of a Nation. It was an extremely racist movie, but what it was very racist. I seen it, but what was the?
You gotta watch it.
I would say this too. When I was dating a chick in Peru that was
Mhm.
Colombian, and somehow we got on the topic of Latinas being. She wanted to do something that was against my standards or a boundary. It was against a boundary. She wanted to do something that was very whore like. And so she's like, "Oh well, like Latinas are like this is normal for us here." And I was like, "Okay, well, like that's it can be normal, but that doesn't mean I have to fuck with you." And so
Okay, but
she's like,
what
"Well,
was it? Or you don't want to share
huh?
that? What was it? Or it's something that you prefer not to share?
No, no. She wanted to display herself online, and
Oh, okay.
I was like, yeah, no, I'm not. I'm not dealing with that. I'm not even dealing with that.
Mhm.
Like, we can hook up and all that, but I'm not gonna deal with you seriously ever." So, she brought up like, "Oh, well,
Gotcha.
just because you're black, I didn't think that you were a criminal." So I was like, "Oh, they have that same perception of black people down here too, that we're just a bunch of criminals." So where do you think that comes from? Like, how did that in Latin America? What is a black man's reputation, and how did that come about?
Well, I don't know if this is the same in like every country in Latin America, but I don't know the origins of it, but I've definitely heard something like that here in Peru. Something that I've never really heard back in Venezuela, but here, people refer to like criminals or sketchy people as negros. Like, oh, there are some negros over there, and I don't really know where that comes from. So I don't know. It's not like in the United States where you have black neighborhoods or anything. No, it's different because here everyone's kind of a little bit mixed. So you have in the barrios, you have people from all ethnicities. So, but I don't really know mm, where that necessarily comes from historically. I know that at one point in history, at least in my country, there was this program called like the whitening of society in like 40s, 50s, whatever, where they brought a lot of Europeans to the country to whiten it. Um, but I don't know if from that, people started to get the idea that, black people are criminals. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either, but I will tell you a couple things that I learned was like
Mm-hmm.
in Argentina, they sent black people to war so they would kill them off that way. But then they limited how much success a black they get basically limited black men to have the lowest level of success where their women would be pretty much forced to date somebody that could actually provide for them, and that led to them
Mm-hmm.
mixing them out way. And in Brazil, when they liberated slaves in Brazil, 80% of the population was African slaves. And of course, they were intimidated by that. So they actually encouraged the whole whitening the race. So they encouraged that everybody mix. That's why Brazilians look the way how they do now. And they Italian and German
Yeah.
immigrant from Europe. So for people that are saying like, oh, like Brazil is like 10% black, I mean, I don't think that they breeded all of them out like that. But I mean, I don't
Mm-hmm.
expect I'm expecting too much from some of y'all in the comments anyway. So, can you provide insight into the historical or cultural or okay, I already asked you that. Damn it, I just asked you that. Okay. What role do you think education plays in changing these deeply ingrained societal beliefs? Like, do you think in the education system they're trying to work out these deeply ingrained mindsets that you need to breed out?
I think there has to be a change because if you're interested in history, and this is something that I think we talked about it when you were here, I'm also kind of like learning history and interested in history. And one of the things that you're going to find when you start learning about Latin America historically and the role Spain and the empire of the in Spain, the Spaniards had over us. And this is, I don't know if there's an expert in history on the chat, but this is kind of like a touchy subject because history is being taught in Latin America in a way where Spaniards are portrayed in a negative lens. And there's something called the Black legend of the Spain history. And when you look into it and you see the true history of that empire and the reasons that they came here and all the tools and the information that they gave us, there wasn't really their goal wasn't really to kill like the indigenous or get rid of them, or no, it was just to bring all the information. And of course they had their agenda of, okay, culturally we're going to impose this to the society, but at the end of the day, the cultures that we had here as indigenous, as well, mainly indigenous, weren't the best. So ultimately, the best culture won, and that's the culture that we have, where we are currently living. So I think improvement will start by changing the education system and implementing the real history of Spain. I don't know how to call it in English, like el Imperio Español,
Mhm.
the Spain
The
Empire. I think that
conquistadors, the conquistadors.
the conquistadores, yes.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a good start. So because the way that it's been told right now is that those evil people came here, colonized us, and now we're creating resentments. And that they colonized us because they felt that they were superior in many ways. So they decided to bring the blacks, kill the indigenous, enslave the black, and it wasn't necessarily like that. So if you first look into the Black legend, if that's how it's called, La Leyenda Negra of the Spain history, and you learn how things really happened and not the way that it's been taught in Latin American, all of them, Latin American schools, that's when you can start shifting the mindset of, oh, it wasn't necessarily about race, it was more about status and power and money. You know, that sistema de castas that it was implemented in Asia a lot, like in India.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
was in a way implemented here, but not in the same way. It wasn't necessarily about race, it was more about status. And there was a lot of mix of Black, Indigenous, and Spaniards based on status. So when you really look into it, it wasn't the same sistema de casta that is still actually implemented back in India when it was purely about skin color and whitening of the whole thing. Here, it was a little bit different. I think that because that was back in the day when they colonized us. More recently, we had this other program of whitening of the society, but that was more recently in the last 100 years. I think the shift there really happened mentally for Black people.